If we stand together, we'll never fall. We can make a difference and answer the call.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the All Around Growth podcast. My name is Rob Kaiser, and I am your host. Today is Thursday, February 19th, 2022, and this is episode number 352 of a show that provides insight and tools to build the life and homestead of your dreams. Because it is a Thursday, we are going to take a look at the Old Farmers Almanac today, and in the show notes you'll find a link to the daily almanac from the Old Farmers Almanac, where you can find out information such as who was born on this day, what happened today in history, and learn little facts such as there are 33 days until summer begins. And for some of us throughout the country and elsewhere, up in Canada or elsewhere in the world for that matter, that may not be the case, but and it most certainly may not feel like 33 days until summer, but indeed it is. You will also see questions of the day, such as if morning glories are such an invasive weed in some species, why can't I get them to grow here in Maine? If you're curious about that, check out the show notes for links to the daily almanac and more. Before I dive into the articles that we are going to talk about, which real quick are going to be morning glories, Asian pears, asparagus soup, and more. I think we're going to talk about asparagus actually. I'd like to share one of the little poems with you. The earth is waking at the new voice of May. The new grass brightens by the trodden way. The woods wave welcome to the sweet spring day, and the sea is growing summer blue. That was written by Elizabeth Akers Allen, who lived from 1832 to 1911. All right, so here's a little snapshot into the daily almanac. We've got morning glories, an article on morning glories. How do you plant and care for morning glories? These strong climbers have beautifully shaped blooms that unfurl in the sun, and romantic tendrils that lend old-fashioned charm. Learn all about growing morning glories in your garden. There's a link to that in the daily almanac, linked to in the show notes. And another article on morning glories. Morning glory vines, favorite varieties. Most of my favorite vines are in the plant family Ipomoea. The most common member of this family is the morning glory, though there are about 300 more plants, including the sweet potato, and many of them are twining climbers. So if you want to learn more about favorite varieties of morning glory vines, check out the show notes, check out the daily almanac in the show notes rather, and you will find a link to that article within. There is also an article on growing Asian pears, juicy, sweet, yet crisp. And meet Asian pears, among the finest fruits I've ever grown. They have the juicy white flesh and lovely bouquet of a pear, but they are round and can be eaten crisp off the tree like an apple. Plus, this fruit is low in acidity, stores for many months, and is easy to grow. I didn't write that. This is a tidbit, the little metadata from the Old Farmers Almanac about this article titled Growing Asian Pears, Juicy, Sweet, Yet Crisp. However, I do have one Asian pear out there. It's a 4-in-1 Asian pear, and here in Northeast Ohio, these seem to be growing better than some of the apples that I've planted, certainly better than the cherries, and I like Asian pears, and so does my dad, so I think we're going to plant more of them. There's also an article on asparagus soup. We make this during asparagus season, and it's amazing. Fresh asparagus makes this impossible to resist, but frozen works almost as well. Serve with crusty bread. See our video on how to make this asparagus soup. We're going to talk about that today because I've been eating more asparagus than normal because asparagus is coming up and we have a lot of it, and there is nothing like fresh asparagus. I think these crowns that are still producing are at least 10 years old. They may be 12 years old. Mom and Dad put those in a long time ago, and they're just still grinding out asparagus, and it is awesome. So before we dive into that article, there is one other article titled "Go Ahead, Add on a Little Weight." And when most people think of exercise, they think of cardio. However, as you age, lifting a little weight is so important for a raft of health benefits, improving strength and balance, boosting metabolism, and helping prevent injury. So here are a few tips in the article in the Daily Almanac. And guys, like I said, this will be linked to in the show notes along with a lot of other things. And guys, I'd just like to encourage you, some of the things that are in the show notes are the Telegram chat. If you want to connect with other people who are like-minded, check out the group chat on Telegram, t.me/allaroundgrowth. And if that's not your bag and you like to connect on other social media, we're also on MeWe, Twitter, Float, Facebook. And admittedly, lately with my new schedule changes, due to the fact that I am self-employed, the episodes are not really getting updated on Float, MeWe, really all the social media. So this is also a call to action. If you would care to help out and assist with the show, contact me, let me know, and I would be happy to connect you and provide admin or moderator capabilities to these groups, whatever they're called, and you can be a part of what's going on too. Otherwise, just be a part of the chat, t.me/allaroundgrowth. There's also links to all episodes in the show notes, a link to how to leave a rating and review in the Apple Podcast app. And I know that many of us don't listen to podcasts through that, but leaving a rating and review in the app certainly does help with the algorithm. And at this time, in May of 2022, this still matters. And although the podcast game is changing, I would encourage you to leave a rating and review. And there's a quick video on how to do that, a link in the show notes to leave a rating and review in the podcast app. If you have any questions or feedback for me, you can send me an email at allaroundgrowth@gmail.com. And with that, let's get into this article about growing Asian pears, juicy, sweet, yet crisp. So how to grow Asian pears. I think for the purposes today, due to the fact that I am behind a computer, or in front of a computer rather, I'll go ahead and read this to you. This will be linked to in the show notes as well. But for those of you who are on the move, on the go, here is an informative article written by Robin Sweeter on May 17th, 2022, just a couple days ago, on how to grow Asian pears. Meet Asian pears, among the finest fruits I've ever grown. They have the juicy white flesh and lovely bouquet of a pear, but they are round and can be eaten crisp off the tree like an apple. Plus, this fruit is low in acidity, stores for many months, and is easy to grow. Asian pears versus European pears. Unlike European pears that get a gritty texture inside if left to ripen on the tree, Asian pears are tree ripened and won't continue to ripen once picked. They are good keepers, lasting almost 2 weeks at room temperature and up to 5 months in the refrigerator. Asian pear origins. Asian pears were brought to this country over 160 years ago by immigrants wanting to bring a familiar food to their new home, but the fruit did not become widely popular here until the 1980s. Because they are round, they are often called apple pears and sometimes referred to as water pears because they are so juicy. Even though they feel firm when ripe, they bruise easily, which is why the ones in the store often appear wrapped in a cozy mesh koozie. They are excellent eaten raw or can be baked into a pie or pear crisp or steamed and drizzled with honey for a traditional Chinese treat. In Japan, slices of peeled pears are often served with dinner. Asian pear varieties. If you are considering adding Asian pears to your edible landscape, these dwarf trees can be a nice ornamental bearing pure white blossoms in the spring. There are many varieties to choose from to do some taste testing of the fruit before you decide. The flavors are subtle and vary from butterscotch to honey to banana to floral to cinnamon, but all are crisp and juicy. Most Asian pears grow similar to European pears in zones 5 to 9, with some varieties that grow in cooler or warmer zones. Here are a few popular varieties for home gardens. Husoi is perhaps the finest tasting Asian pear with beautiful golden skin, juicy sweet tart flesh, and a firm apple-like crunch. This tree grows 10 to 16 feet tall and fruit ripens from mid-August to late September. Chojuro Asian pear is the most popular Asian pear variety with the flavor of butterscotch and a storage life of up to 5 months. In home gardens, plant the dwarf variety. Shinseki is known for the wide variety of climates in which this fruit can thrive, from warm to cold. The fruit is bright yellow and very juicy. It's half the size of other pears but produces double the volume and makes a perfect snack-sized pear. And there's a photo of, looks like the author growing a hardy giant which lives up to its name, producing many huge fruits. And this one is about the size of a softball, guys. Growing Asian pears. They are not reliable self-pollinators, so they will produce better if planted with another Asian variety that blooms at the same time. A European pear such as Bartlett can serve as a pollinator. If you are cramped for space, look for a 3-in-1 or 4-in-1 multi-budded plant. These trees will have 3 or 4 different varieties grafted onto a single rootstock. Like European pears, they are cold hardy and need to chill out in the winter, requiring at least 50 to 70 days of temperature below 45 degrees, so they do best in zones 5 to 8. They can take some shade and tolerate a wide range of soil types, but prefer full sun with well-drained, slightly acidic soil. Pest and disease resistant, there is little that troubles these trees. I'm used to animals raiding my fruit before I can pick it, but nothing bothers the Asian pears. Codling moth is the most common pest, and fire blight the most common disease, but neither one has given us any trouble. How to plant Asian pears. Plant the bare root trees in spring or autumn in full sun and well-drained soil with its graft union, a knob at the bottom of the trunk, 2 to 4 inches above the soil. When planting, position the graft 3 inches above the soil line. Since the tree's shape is naturally upright, you can plant them 10 to 15 apart, but they could also be grown as espaliers on a fence or trellis. Quick note on these, you can definitely do that. You can buy trees as espaliers at garden centers and definitely keep that graft union above soil level. And really what you want to do, especially if your trees are grown in containers or in the field for that matter, doesn't matter, you want the root flare. So follow that graft union below the actual union, follow the trunk down, and where the roots start to flare out, that is where you want your soil level to match. And that may require you pulling an inch or 2 off of the top of the container or the B&B tree, the balled and burlap tree that was field dug. A lot depends on the planting method when these trees are stuck in the container and stuck in the pot and how they're produced. More often than not, they're planted too deeply. So if they're planted too deeply during the time of production and you take them and plant them how they are, you are going to plant them too deeply, and more often than not, this results in overwatering and plants dying, presenting the same symptoms as underwatering, which leads us to water them more, and we kill our plants. Like Old Man Rich taught me when I first began working in the nursery business, plant high, never die. Plant low, you never know. Just remember, roots will grow to where the water is, but they can't grow out of too much stagnant water. Back to the article. Water young trees deeply once a week. Mulch every spring with compost. It will take 2 to 3 years to fruit. The trees develop many fruiting spurs along all the branches. So to encourage bigger pears, thin to 1 fruit every 6 inches once the fruits are the size of a cherry. It's important to thin to avoid disease as good fruit size and yield. If you do have pests, consider a dormant oil spray or buy beneficial parasitic trichogamma wasps to release in spring. To judge when to harvest, taste test almost daily and keep an eye on the skin color, which will change. The fruit should still be firm, never soft and overripe. Don't pick too soon or the sugars won't fully develop. And remember to be gentle when picking Asian pears to avoid bruising. The pear, like an apple, should fall off fairly easy. Do not pull hard. The only thing I have to add with these bullet points are with regard to water. Water when your plants need it. If you're not sure, go out to about the drip line of the tree, a little bit beyond where the baller container was planted, dig down 4 to 6 inches, pull out a little bit of soil, give it a smell, give it a feel. You know, you want to be able to kind of ribbon the soil through your fingers, and you'll know if it's too wet. It may have a little bit of a smell. You're good on water. If it's too dry, you know, you can't just stick to some guideline of watering trees once a week. Once you do these things and check your soil and get your hands in the ground and continually monitor your plants, you will learn how to read your plants just by what the leaves tell you. That comes with experience and time, but don't just stick to these baseline ideas of water once a week. No. Learn your plants. Learn to communicate with them. Learn how to read them when they are communicating with you. All right. That's it for the article. And to conclude, the author writes, go out on a limb. Asian pears may sound like an exotic fruit, but they are actually easy to grow and quite delicious. And there is also another article on pears, planting, growing, and harvesting pears. At the end of that article, it links to this article. So if you are interested in pears, there's a wealth of abundance here. And the Old Farmers Almanac, in my humble opinion, seems to be a good framework and baseline of determining, you know, what you're interested in and a good source of information. So check out the Old Farmers Almanac for more on growing Asian pears or planting, growing, and harvesting pears. And again, guys, check out the show notes. Everything that I talked to in today's episode about pears in the Old Farmers Almanac is linked to in the show notes. And that's it for today's episode, guys. I've got to hit the road, get to work. Got a couple jobs lined up today. Very excited to hit the road, grind it out, and continue on with this new path that I've chosen in life. Guys, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. This is Rob Kaiser, and thank you.
In a world of pain, what can I do? The needs are many and answers a few. People turn away and I wonder why. If I can help somebody, then I want to try. People may think that it's odd that I believe in friendship and love. And truth is always the best way to the world that may seem odd. I'm an odd fellow. I'm an odd fellow. I'm an odd that I believe in friendship and love. Truth is always the best way to the world that may seem odd. I'm an odd fellow. You're an odd